I'm Mr. MegaManFan, and this is Awesome Possum Kicks Dr. Machino's Butt. You've heard me make jokes about this before on Genesis Does, but today I'm actually going to show it to you. This is a game made by Tengen, rated GA for general audiences by the Video Game Rating Council that Sega themselves used after the controversy about violent video games like allegedly violent video game Night Trap came under congressional scrutiny. And perhaps because of that scrutiny, they decided to make an environmentally friendly Genesis game with a little help from Tengen, and it even promises a free comic book inside. Not a separate comic book, mind you. They actually printed the comic book into the instruction manual, featuring our quote, mild-mannered marsupial, who is the hero of the Awesome Possum game. But is he actually awesome? Is this game actually awesome? As Mr. Peanut Butter would say on Hollywood Celebrities, what do they know? Do they know things? Let's find out. Let's find out. Now, you may have noticed that the cover of this complete inbox Sega Genesis game had a $4.99 price sticker on it. Well, that's not 2020 prices. That's more like 2002 prices. Currently, it goes for $9.53 loose and $20 complete in the box. But would you want to pay those prices? Well, let's give you a little look at the gameplay as I talk about what the Wikipedia entry says. And I'm not going to read too much of this because I think you can very quickly get the idea just by seeing what I'm doing. Mad scientist Dr. Machino has sent his robots to pollute the earth and endanger the wildlife. Aided by Killer Bee and Rad Rhino, Awesome Possum sets out to destroy the robots, put a stop to the mad scientist, and save the world. Pretentious much? No, not at all. This is the Captain Planet and the Planeteers of Sega Genesis video games. They really leaned into this hard. I'm not opposed to younger audiences learning about environmentally friendlier choices. In fact, I think it should probably be a part of education from kindergarten on up. I'm just not sure that putting it into an action platforming video game is really the way to get that message across. In fact, from my own personal experience when I was younger, I definitely did not enjoy people lecturing to me in times where I was supposed to be enjoying myself. Like, I'm watching Saturday morning cartoons, and then all of a sudden, an environmental PSA comes on and tells me to do my part, give a hoot, don't pollute. Those kind of things, even if well-intentioned, became a joke. Those were things that kids would relentlessly mock and make fun of and do parodies of because nobody wants that when they're trying to have fun. And then again, Awesome Possum is not necessarily the easiest game to have fun with. The controls are very, very slippery, which is not an ideal choice in a game where you're moving at high velocity as you are here. There are hidden traps everywhere that, because you're moving at such high speed, it's almost impossible to avoid. There are bear traps in the ground. There are spikes in pits. There are chainsaw-wielding robots. You're going to fly into things a lot. And each time you do, it takes a little chunk of your life bar at the top off. At least they give you a life bar that can take more than a few hits, but you are going to take those hits unless you memorize the position of everything in the level through repeated play. And repeated play is what Awesome Possum demands because you are not going to be awesome at this game from the get-go. And it's also something that doesn't make a whole lot of sense when you examine it beyond the cartoon logic that they've put into this game. For example, if this is about being awesome and saving the environment, which aren't things that necessarily have to correlate, why are there soda cans everywhere, and why are they things that you pick up for a boost? And what does that say to a kid playing it? Like, oh yeah, soda cans are awesome. Man, I need to drink more soda so I can be fast like Awesome Possum. Wouldn't that be the exact opposite of being environmentally friendly? Why would you want to collect can? Well, maybe you're collecting them to recycle, but that's not entirely obvious. It's not like at any point Awesome Possum takes a bag full of cans to the recycling center and says, "Here, use these to create new cans and give me a little cash for them. That would be great. Thanks." That doesn't happen. But what does happen is you get a very ominous looking game over with a darkened screen and a whole bunch of tombstones that say, "Rest in peace." Did The Undertaker invade this environmental game? Who the hell knows? But let's take a look at the options menu since I had such a harsh death there and see if we can change anything. One thing you'll definitely want to change is the speech settings because Awesome Possum talks way too much. If you thought Bubsy the Bobcat was obnoxious, Awesome Possum is perhaps worse because Bubsy usually does it at the beginning or end of levels, and Awesome Possum just says random things all the time. But at least the designers of this game realized that could get old and included the option to turn him down or turn him off completely. So I will give them bonus points for that. Speaking of bonus points, there's environmental trivia questions about the planet and its inhabitants and environmental waste and all sorts of different eco related things. So, once again, they are leaning hard into this whole idea of kids are going to play this game and be educated while having fun at the same time. I am not saying that's impossible. I don't want you to think that. Sesame Street can do both of those things. The Electric Company did both of those things when I was a kid. So did 321 Contact. I'm not saying there's no way for education to be fun or for fun to be educational. I'm just saying when you really cram it down the throat of a video game like Awesome Possum, which is trying so hard to be awesome and rad and cool, then it becomes the opposite of those things. It's not, it's never going to be cool when you try to make it cool and put education in there in such a blatantly self serving and pandering way. It's the very opposite of cool. It's like that skit from 30 Rock where Steve Buscemi says, "How do you do, fellow kids?" It's so wrong. It's not going to work. They had good intentions here, but the real problem is not their good intentions going awry by being so self serving and over the top obnoxious. It's really the design of the game that is the biggest problem. The jerkiness of the animation in the foreground against the static animation. This is not parallax in any way. You can feel everything jutting left and right as Awesome Possum tries to move at breakneck speed, and the fact that the background is static only makes that worse. And these spike traps that are unavoidable, and these airplanes that swoop in on you. And if we're talking about design elements, why are there jet airplanes in the tropical rainforest? Again, where is the logic in this game? In its own world, it can't even make sense to itself, let alone to an outside perspective looking in on it. It's problematic. I'm not saying this is the worst game I've ever played on Genesis does, because according to my good friend Jason Harlan, that would probably be Skitchin, which I gave such a scathing review of in a previous episode that he is now convinced this game needs to be my very own, how should I say it, albatross around my neck. It's apparently going to be the Dick Vitale's awesome, baby, of the Genesis Does series. Just like Scott the Woz has his thing, Skitchin is now my thing. But if I was to say I would recommend a game or not recommend a game, I would put this one higher on the not recommended list because if you could take the time to memorize every single pratfall and every single trap and be patient enough to inch your way along, even though it wants you to fly along at high speeds, maybe you could eventually get good at this game and have some fun at it. But I don't have that kind of time or patience, and I'm going to take this ill-fitting Tengen cartridge out of my Analog Mega SG with force, because that's what it deserves. I had to forcefully put it in, I'm forcefully ripping it out, and I'm done with it.